Positive communication. This week's assignment was over positive communication. I had found several problems in my shop that I felt needed to be addressed. Over the past few times of me going to my supervisor and expressing the problems, I had found that his interest was more or less lacking. He acknowledged what I was wanting done, yet it wasn't a top priority. After reviewing the material and figuring out positive communication techniques, I then again approached him over the past week and presented the material again. And the interaction actually was a lot more positive. Before, he would sit behind his desk and would be fidgeting with papers or doing work on the computer. This time I decided to catch him first thing in the morning when he walked in. As he walked in and approached his desk, I asked, could I have about 15 minutes of his time to have a communication session with him in private? I wanted to talk to him about the problems that we were having without the distractions. He said yes, so I went into his office, we shut the door, and privately we discussed the problems that I had noticed, the solutions that I had figured out how to fix them, and the steps that I wanted to take in order to get them fixed. After having his undivided attention, he expressed that I had all the rights to contact maintenance and get them to fix the problems. And on top of that, he actually showed appreciation for me going above and beyond to find problems that not only affected safety, but also affected production and other aspects of our job. After that, I left his office actually feeling better about everything because, like I said, normally he would have kind of dismissed it and acted like it wasn't such a big deal. But this time, he actually showed interest and even followed up with me to check and see how things were going. I printed out this chart. As a representation of identifying the problem, communicating, figuring out the solution for the problem, addressing the situation with not being able to communicate with my supervisor, sitting down and communicating with my supervisor, and finally achieving the desired outcome of getting the go ahead to contact maintenance and get the problems fixed. I found that uh, by simply sitting down, looking him eye to eye, both with undivided attention, that not only did we both listen to each other, but we both had more of a firm understanding of what was going on and what was asked and what was desired. This week we had questions that we had to answer. The first was, what was the outcome you were trying to achieve? I was trying to get my boss to listen to new ideas I'd come up with and actually take them into consideration as far as implementing. Providing some context to that, the person I worked with was my supervisor, Ben. I had discovered multiple problems in our work area that was not only affecting operations but also affecting safety. What actions did you plan to take to conduct this experiment? I planned to approach my boss and ask him for time to sit down and have a private meeting about my concerns, which we did, and it actually turned out to be very positive for both people. What are your measures of success? At the end of the interaction, not only did my boss grant me the ability to get maintenance to fix the problems, but he also complimented me on my willingness to go above and beyond to make our job safer and more effective or efficient. The execution. How did you approach the scenario? I approached my supervisor first thing in the morning before the workday was fully began. I asked if I could have a few minutes of his time privately to discuss the concerns that I had noted. What happened according to each measure of success? At the end of the conversation, I was able to get solutions with maintenance without having to go through my supervisor in order to get the items fixed. I was also able to have an honest conversation with my supervisor in which we both exchanged ideas and listened. What specific behaviors did you observe? Normally, my boss would have been distracted, as I stated earlier, either with his phone, his computer, papers, people coming in and out, whatnot. But this time, we both were able to actually sit down and have a conversation as gentlemen and listen and communicate effectively. Were you surprised? What were there any surprises or insights? I was actually very surprised that after multiple times of sitting down with my boss and it seemed to get pushed to the side this one time, that I actually applied the communication techniques, that the outcome was positive and that a lot of the problems that we had or that I had concerns for were actually fixed. The reflection. How are you thinking, feeling during this interaction? At first, I felt like this was going to be just another normal interaction. I was going to go in, express my concerns about things, and he would dismiss them or overlook them as he did from time to time. But instead, I was met with interest and concern for the situation. What one or two insights did you learn about HQC? I learned that positive communication can bring positive outcomes, and that when you have someone's undivided attention, that the communication is more open and the dialogue goes more smoothly. What one or two ideas do you have to implement high quality communication in the future? In the future, I plan on making sure that whenever I approach my supervisor or anyone else in my field, that I not only have their undivided attention, but I also allow for both listening and responding from both parties. How can you apply it when you are on the receiving end? When somebody approaches me with a complaint or a concern, I can give them my undivided attention, listen fully to their complaint or concern while showing concern for their concern, and then appropriately respond to such. Compare this approach with the previous experiment using appreciative inquiry and the feedback you received. After the previous experiment that I did this week and the combination of this experiment, I have come to determine that effective communication, both speaking and listening, are the most effective ways to get problems solved, whether they're personal problems such as being stressed or burnout, or if they're job problems such as equipment failures or malfunctions or safety concerns. With this all in mind, I have decided that a positive part of each, both appreciative inquiry and positive communication, can be applied to everyday situations, and the outcomes will be a lot more favorable for both parties. Thank you.